Bum 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum ba-da-dum bum 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 dum dum bum bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum ba-da-bum bum bum bum, bum bum ba-da-bum bum bum bum, bum bum ba-da-bum bum bum bum, bum 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 ba-da-dum. Bum 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 bum, bum bum ba-da-dum bum bum bum, bum 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 ba-da-dum.
All right, Gustavo, Adolfo, Uribe here, and on this episode of the whiteboard, I'm gonna show you guys how to write a music concert review. Okay, and why? How do I do this? Okay, because at UCSB I took a class for a music critique class. It was pretty cool, and I read the book Words on Music by other music critics, and it was taught by my professor, Dr. Jeremy Haladina. And it was a really cool class. Got to go to concerts, read other ways how they do it, blah 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 blah, and check out my Amazon wish list or list in the description where you can pick up a copy of that book. If you're interested in that. And then also I ended up working at the Santa Barbara Independent, writing music articles, and I did some interviews and I did music reviews. And when I started working there, I was a temp, and then they're like, "Oh man, you got a master's in music. Oh, why don't you write music for us?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I did. My first assignment, actually, I did the Mutter something classical trio. I was like a violinist, a cellist, and a pianist. They're like really famous, many Grammys. And I wrote it in the style of like a play, play like a Shakespeare play. It was pretty crazy, and they're like, "Oh wow, this is pretty crazy." It's my first chance. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, right? And then they liked it. They put on the line online, and but then they start teaching me like, okay, well, there's a way that we do this. There's like a formula, and so I'm gonna share that with you. I thought that was really interesting. If you're a music critique writer or whatever, I'm gonna share this knowledge that I gained with you guys. So check this out. I have my pen here, and in the newspaper, size matters. Okay, so here's a page of the newspaper, and then if you divide it by half, right there, that's like half a page, right? You divide it by fourths, that's a quarter page, right? Now when they do advertisements, they usually do them like in sizes, right? And then you could do 0.6 and 0.4, right? So you have this would be 0.6 and then this would be 0.4. And then like you could have let's see, where's my Windex? Why does this matter? I'm going to explain it right now. So the way that newspapers work is that they get their money through advertisements, all right? So they could, one ad might be like this size or be like a small square, or they'll have like little ads like this, and they'll fill it up, right? Or do like a size like this, and it goes by columns. So like, for example, the Independent's like 5 columns, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then the 2 columns by whatever many inches of the page. So the reason this is important is that when you get into if you ever write a review for a newspaper, they have a specific formula because they have limited space. So in those sizes, they'll probably have like some picture or whatever like that, and then they'll have like your article, however the way they put it together, and they're gonna give you sizes. So like, for example, like a standard size that I was writing, they would be like 400 words. 400 words, okay, that I'd have más o menos, more or less, I'd have to write, and then they would put it in a certain, page, and then they could either condense it into like a quarter page, or they could make it like half of a page and like fill it out, make it a feature or whatever, and that's how it worked. Now, if you guys are thinking about doing this professionally, you want to write for newspaper, I don't know, depending on the newspaper, it's actually pretty hard to get hired at a newspaper as a writer. If you're a writer, depending on the newspaper, you know what I'm saying, or magazine, the wages may vary, and if that's in-house, right? You're in-house writer, but usually, if you see me sweating, it's because it's really hot. By the way, it's the summer, okay, and I got the fucking lights in here, and the door and the windows and doors are closed to help with the sound. Anyways, let me get some coffee. So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So if you're an in-house writer, that's pretty hard. I mean, fuck. But I think usually you're gonna start off as a freelance writer, and that's how I was getting paid. I was a temp, and I was doing freelance writing, and I eventually became in-house, and got hired. Like permanent position. But anyways, the point is, as a freelancer, they're gonna give you a rate. Like either like 10 cents a word or 25 cents a word, depending on where you go. So for example, if you write an article that's 400 words and you get 10 cents a word, that's going to be $40 per article. And usually my first articles, like, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I was at the coffee shop and had all my notes, and I was at the coffee shop. It took me like fucking 3 hours to get it, and I was like, oh fuck. But then I learned, once I learned their formula and how to adjust my workflow, it comes out to this. Like, to go to the concert, that's gonna be 1 to 2 hours. I'm just gonna say 2 hours, right? I'm gonna say 2 hours because you gotta like prepare, like maybe eat something before or drive there, blah 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 blah. It might take less than 2 hours, but let's say roughly 2 hours, okay? And then you're gonna write the article, which is gonna take another hour to sketch it out, and then another hour to make sure that the details are right, that all the facts are right, all the names are right, to editing. So the outline, and then editing, and then you turn it in, and they give you a deadline. So you got, like, depending on your deadline, like, you might have 2 to 4 day turnaround. And if you add it up, it's like a 4-hour average. And if you're getting 400 times 10 cents, that's $40, right? So it comes out to about $10 per hour. However, because you are a freelance writer, you get paid as an independent contractor. So when you get taxed, you get taxed pretty heavily for that. So if you want to be a writer, but that's a 10 cents a word, okay? I mean, if you could find something that's 25 cents a word or whatever, and then if you have something that's, more magazines and more newspapers that you write or do online is different, it's not, I mean, it's actually the same probably, but with newspaper, it's much more defined in terms of size and deadlines and shit like that. Online, I mean, you could write an article however long you want, and I don't think they're they may or may not charge you, pay you per word, but they don't have the same restrictions that a print article has, because a print article size matters. On the internet, size doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So all of these print articles will go online, and if they don't make it in the print, then they'll go online. That's kind of how it worked for me. So now that's the newspaper, right? And so now I'm gonna show you the actual formula for writing a music concert review. And well, actually, hold up, before I go into that, I'm gonna type the type of music articles, right? Whatever, I don't fucking remember how to spell article. Okay. There's a review. No. First, there's a preview, a review, and an interview. Those are the 3 different types of music articles that you do. Okay, so for a preview, that's basically like, hey, this artist is coming to town, and they're giving you like a background, right? Before the event. And it might incorporate an interview, you know, but it can stand by itself. So that's what they call a preview. So it can be an interview, but it doesn't necessarily is an interview, you know what I'm saying? A review is basically a concert review, or maybe an album review, or music review. And an interview is a fucking interview, okay? So as a newspaper, these things are cycle around the actual event. So like the PR person will give you like some free tickets, and you'll either do a preview, a review, or an interview, depending on how much time you have, and blah blah blah. Okay? So for most interviews, by the way, it's probably going to be over the phone. It can be in person, but usually, like if it's a celebrity, I do it over the phone. I actually had the chance of doing an interview for Kronos Quartet, the leader of Kronos Quartet. I did Juanes, the Colombian rock star. It's pretty fucking cool. Really fucking cool. really fucking cool. Okay, but it's by phone, and what you do is basically you record it. You get one of those, you know, little adapter things, plug it in. You can figure it out, but it's hard because most people don't use landlines. But if you have a landline, there's a little adapter you could get from like Radio Shack or something that splits it, and then you record it on a little recorder, Zoom recorder, or you can just do old school and just get a little Zoom recorder and then put them on speakerphone and then record it on the Zoom recorder. You know. Anyways, okay, so now let's talk about the actual formula. So the formula is the actual who it is, whatever it is, and the little title. So the title is like kind of like interesting title or something. In the newspaper, it's a shorter title. In the online, you can make a bigger title. So, you know, whatever the title is. I remember I did a review for the Los Tigres del Norte, and one of my titles was Guns, Drugs, and Border Jumping. Wait, Guns, Drugs, and border jumping. And on the it was in print too, and it was just like all fucking like big bold letters. Like I was like, oh shit, bro, and it's pretty cool because there's music is about that. That's why it's not racist or anything like that. But anyways, it was a good concert. But anyways, you put your title there, and then you do like your little like where it was, what venue, what's the date, so like logistic stuff. Okay, now that's if it's a concert review, or if it's like an interview, you put your title, and then you just do like a brief description. So logistic stuff or brief description, like basically 2 sentences of like who is the artist, like what do they do in a nutshell. So excuse me, if anybody who's reading it that doesn't know the artist and kind of get like a real quick like, oh okay, that's the formula. Okay, now that's just the title and the brief description, right? Now for the body of the thing, you gotta put like the intro paragraph, and the intro paragraph is basically why are they important. Because if the person who's reading it, they may not know who that person is. So you have to have like an intro, background, why are they important. Now the body of it, the second, third, whatever paragraphs, is basically if it's a music review, right? Let's just focus on the review for right now. It's basically one paragraph or multiple paragraphs is basically what was the concert like? So you kind of give a description of what the atmosphere of the concert was. Another one you could do is what does their music sound like? Why are they important? What was the concert like? And what does their music sound like? And then to like kind of summary it up, were they successful? Were they successful? Were they successful? Like, were they successful in doing a good show? Were they successful in the music that they were playing? Did they accomplish the goal that they were playing, that they were trying to do? And that is basically the formula, dude. And it looks really simple. So title, brief description, why are they important? What was the concert like? What did their music sound like? And were they successful? Very fucking simple. If you keep this formula, then when you go to the concert, you take your notepad and you got your pen, and then you just kind of take notes. And that's okay, so let's go over the strategy of getting this shit done. Strategy. Okay, because what you want to do as a writer, you want to do this shit as fast as possible so you can get the most amount of money as possible. Sounds kind of fucked up, but not really. Because remember, we're getting like $10 an hour, you know. So, what I do is I bring a notepad. Kind of like this, like a journalist notepad, and you can put it in your pocket with a pen, and you just take a couple pens just in case one fucks up, and you're taking notes during your show. Now, honestly, my writing, it looks like shit, and it looks like scribbles. I don't know if you've noticed already. Half of the battle is just figuring out what I wrote, but hopefully you have better handwriting than I do. So you have a notepad, and what you do, is my strategy is I write first impressions. Who are like the people surrounding, you know, the audience, I guess. The theater, what's the vibe, what does it look like? Anything that comes to mind. What's the color of the curtains, like the colors, the smells, you know, anything that comes to mind, just bat 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 bat. Then when they're actually performing, the musician, you know, what they're wearing, how they enter the stage, you know, what are they wearing, how do they enter the stage, you know, anything first impressions. And then when they're actually, then you go into the music, when they're actually playing their songs, you know, what does the music sound like? The instrumentation of the music. You know, if it's a rock band, say like, okay, it's a rock band, you know, 2 guitars, a drummer, a bassist, and a singer. You know, anything, because you want to, when people read your shit, they want to, it was like they're there, like they understand, they were in the seat, they get it. You know, why were they important? Were they successful? Like, this is very basic shit, but there's a process, there's a method to the madness, so I'm going through it. Music, what they sound like, instrumentation, you know, what songs did they play? You know, was there an encore? You know, anything unique about what they played? Is there any... Okay, so that's like some basic stuff. And then is there any like historical background things that you could tie into where you live? You know, historical back... that's later, but... okay, so... Then when you get home, okay, so this is a strategy. So that's part 1. Part 2, you get home, right? So then you type up your notes. Just put in the word processor. Just put it in there. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about things. Just put it in there. Type up notes, and then is there any historical things that you might find out? Historical ties. Or interesting info, like little tidbits, you know what I'm saying? Or is there any personal information that, or insights that you as a music reviewer have with this performance or whatever? This is like advanced stuff, but if you read my articles, you'll figure out like I'm a fucking genius when it comes to this shit. I'm not kidding. So anyways, personal information, insights, and so you type up all this stuff together, okay? So that's part 2. Now part 3, is now you start to categorize it. So you take all your little notes and then you start to condense it into those categories that I told you, right? In the beginning. So like, you know, the venue, the audience, you know, what was it like? You know, then you go into like their performance, you know, and then background. So, for example, like if you have any personal stuff, insights, or you have any historical things, you could put that in the intro, right? Then you could put this venue stuff as your second paragraph, performance as your third paragraph, and then were they successful? That's your own conclusion. That's actually that's the only part where you're actually critiquing them. Kind of funny, huh? You think as a music critique, they're like critiquing everything. That's actually the last part of the process. Actually, the smallest part of the process. It's kind of weird, but that's just the way it is because you're taking all of these things into consideration and then you're forming your own conclusion. And that's the last paragraph, right? And then all in all, you try to get it under 400 words or whatever. If you have more words, you can use more words. But that, something like that is about 4 or 5 paragraphs, condensed, solid writing, bam. Now, if you're doing the interview, this is the strategy. You do some research on the person. So Wikipedia them, whatever the fuck it is, and then you read other articles that are the interviews of them. So you try to get what questions have they already answered. And you have to figure those out. Then you have to figure out what questions do you need to ask. What is required that you have to ask them? Because sometimes, like if they're performing in your city, you kind of have to tie something with your city, or you know, like they're promoting a special an album, or they got a special tour that they're doing, and you gotta ask them questions that are relevant to the artist, right? Or that you need to you're expected to ask them anyways. So these kind of contradict each other a little bit, because like what questions have they already asked, and then what questions you need to ask. So you kind of, it's like you know. But then you when you do these steps though, here's the method to the madness. What questions do you want to ask? Then you start to figure it out. And if you get stuck, there's some safe topics that you can always ask them. You can talk about their family. Talk about their interests. Find out what these artists like. Find out if they have a family, what's their family life, because these are really safe topics that people always want to know. You can never fuck it up with these things. The music is actually the easy part. Like for example, what questions have they asked? What questions did you need to ask? These are kind of, you know, music related, right? But then to take it to the next level, then you find out, well, what's interesting, what are they interested in, what's some new angles, because I kid you not that you'd be fucking surprised that people actually read this shit. It's kind of like when I'm doing this, I'm in my computer, I'm drinking my coffee. I don't write music articles anymore because I'm focusing on my own music career. But when I was doing it, I don't know. It's probably like about a period of within a year's period, Um, and I drink my coffee, la 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 la, and I'm like laughing because I'm kind of like humorous, and I use different uh, food for thought. Let's segue here. Um, I would do my coffee or whatever, laugh like, oh, that's funny, blah blah blah. And sure enough, man, people actually read it. And here's a true story. One of the concerts I did a interview with Lisa de something. Oh crap, I forgot her name. Lisa de Sale, French pianist, right? Very famous. I did an interview with her, and then I did the concert review, right? But I did the interview, and and then I found out that she was into fashion and stuff, and she moved to New York from Paris, and then and then yeah, so in the interview I wrote a line that I was like, well, what do you like to do for fun? Kind of a stupid question, but like kind of like again, it goes back to what are they interested in. Sometimes you have to pry and figure it out like a detective because it's not obvious. Sometimes the artists are really flamboyant and you already got some material you could work with, but some of them you kind of have to dig, right? So for her, she said that she likes going to the museums and she likes to eat with her family and spend time with them and go to nice restaurants and stuff like that. And that's like not really that interesting, kind of sort of, but it is kind of interesting because you get like a piece of what their life is like outside of the music, right? And I kid you not, I went to the actual concert to do a review, and I'm like waiting for my friend, and all of a sudden this guy's like walking past with a gentleman with his wife or something like that, and then he was like, oh yeah, she actually likes to go to museums, a lot of times art museums, and she likes to eat at nice restaurants with her family. And then he's like, oh really? Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's very interesting. I'm like, motherfucker, I wrote that shit. So anyways, that's a real true story. So food for thought. This is some advanced shit right here. Is that now you may think like I'm kind of like a Yahoo or whatever. Like actually, the Santa Barbara Independent, just throwing it out there, is award-winning newspaper in Santa Barbara. Lots of awards from California and national awards, and I a lot of writers that I work with, coworkers. They're really good writers, like renowned writers, and they're really good. And I learned a lot of tidbits from them. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things I learned was that you have to ask, as a critic, was it successful? This is your part as a critic. You know? Because what happens is, I don't remember how to write that. Whatever. What happens is that, there's other reviews that I've read, and this is what happens. A, they weren't there when they're bullshitting it. That happens more often than you think. B, they're just slamming it. They're just fucking slamming it. They already have a pre-bias. They don't like it. They're just slamming it, slamming it, slamming it. And there might, like, for example, I might agree with a lot of shit they're saying. Like, for example, I don't want to put names out there, but you have an artist and you don't like them, but you do a review because they want to slam him. That's not good, bro, because what happens is you piss off the readers. Not because you're being wrong or right, because I actually do agree with some of the shit that they say, but you're wrong in that the fact that you're not addressing this question: were they successful? For example, if you take a rap artist, right, and maybe their music sucks, and you go to their concert and there's a bunch of stupid songs. But you gotta ask, was it successful? And then if you do the research as a critic, then you realize, well, they're in a lineage of weed hip hop, and that goes. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're rapping about smoking and that's their main aesthetic, and people in the audience are smoking and blah 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 blah, then you have to realize there's a tradition of hip hop, marijuana, pro marijuana rappers, and it even goes back to reggae music with Bob Marley and Legalize It and Peter Tosh and stuff. So there's an actual history of that. So there's nothing wrong with that, and they're actually successful in doing pro marijuana music. So for the readers that read that, you totally missed the whole fucking. As a critic, you were unsuccessful in addressing were the artist was the artist successful. So you have to, you have to take your bias out of it. You have to take your preconceptions out of it. Now you take your bias and your preconceptions to give it the art of give it the spice, but you still have to address this question. Now that segues to the other thing is what is you have to take your musical background and you gotta take that to the table, and study music so you know what the fuck you're talking about. The other thing is you gotta bring any other references to the table. So like film, books, politics, to the table, because what that does is it gives you breath. It gives you breath in your language and communication. Because you can do metaphors and comparisons to give your review some fresh perspectives. For example, one time I reviewed they were doing Ravel's Bolero, and that piece is like, what else can you say about that? It's a famous classical music piece, but I was like, I compared it to movie references, and I was like, the landscape, cinematic, something vision of Lawrence of Arabia and blah blah blah, and I did this like really cool movie references. There was a concert review that I did was Carmina Burana, and I compared it with Conan the Barbarian because it's kind of similar. And then I did research and I realized that Carmina Burana and the writer of Conan the Barbarian were in like the same time period, and they wrote about similar themes in their. It was fucking genius. But anyways, one of the ladies got like I don't know, some rich bitch, or like and they kind of complained, but I was like, I don't give a fuck, Cholo, because I'm a genius and you're not, so fuck it. And that's the type of shit you have to deal with as a critic too, is that people will complain and praise at the same time, as long as you address it. Was it successful? As long as you do every step that I said, the intro, the background, blah 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 blah, and you answer this question, you did a good job. And people will complain about you and praise you at the same time. So something that you just have to get used to. And the art of it really is there's the whole formula and everything is very basic, okay? But the art of the music review or article or whatever is your voice that you bring to the table. Interviews, they're kind of cut and dry. I mean, but you gotta curate the interview. But the actual music review or critic, if you're doing a critique, you really have to, even if you're just doing an album review or something like that, you gotta take those same formula and apply it. And the art is what you're bringing to the table, your voice as the critic, or you know what I'm saying? That's the most important part. And then that being the case, the reader can look at your critique and other critiques, and it helps them this is the important part of as a critic is you're helping the audience or the reader better understand the artist. That's it, bro. As a critic, you're helping the reader better understand the artist. That's what you need to do. So you don't bash them for no fucking reason. If you do bash them, you have to say why. Why you're bashing them. You cannot bash them for no fucking reason, because then you look like a fucking retard as a music critic. People are gonna read this. I'm like, well, what the fuck? No, you have to explain why. If it's unsuccessful in whatever they're trying to accomplish, that's why you explain why. You know what I'm saying? And that would be a negative review, but you have to explain why. Why were they successful? Why were they unsuccessful? Why? Because it helps the reader better understand the artist. You have to assume that the reader does not have your musical background, does not have your breadth of expertise. That's why they're reading the fucking critique. That's why they're reading the review. You know? And that's going to help them determine, okay, is this artist something that I would want to maybe help persuade them to listen, or persuade them not to listen? You're kind of like a filter mechanism, you know? Or if they're fans, you know, they just want to read, you know, maybe they were at the concert and they want to read what you thought, you know? Because they don't have the same expertise. So anyways, that's it. That's how to write a music review or article. And I hope that is helpful to you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have some more ideas of what, you know, I could do videos on, just, you know, shoot me a comment or email me. And then, yeah, you know, if I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't, then I won't. Fuck it. All right. Thanks.